Huh. Ha! I knew I still had them. This is how I booked my very first wedding. That's it. Those 4 photographs. Can you believe that? I actually made that. That's Jaden. That's Jaden when he was all of 4 years old. Where do you start? Gosh, that's a tough one. Especially when it comes to photographing weddings. How do you book a wedding if you don't have a wedding portfolio? But how do you build a portfolio if you can't book a wedding? It's kind of like the chicken or the egg. It is definitely a struggle, and it is definitely something that every photographer experiences, whether it be shooting commercial stuff or shooting high school seniors or anything like that. And there's a lot of different ways you can kind of start out in the beginning, but the biggest thing that I think a lot of us miss out on is just start with what you have. This is before I booked my very first wedding. And I booked my very first wedding shortly after I bought these prints. And if you look at the date here, the date is February 27th, 2009. So over 10 years ago now. And at that time, I didn't have a wedding portfolio. I literally had a photograph of a cool tree at a park. Here's my kid at sunset. Speaking of sunsets, here's a sunset. Hey, do you want to take a chance and book me? That's literally how I started out. If you rewind the clock, and for those of you around in 2008, 2009, man, that was a tough time to do any sort of industry that had any sort of luxury tendencies, which weddings do. The economy was crashing. Also, combine that with the photography world was experiencing kind of the digital revolution. A lot of changes were taking place from the film to digital transition, which in the wedding world dramatically impacted how people actually photographed. When every time in a film world, when you click that shutter button, it cost you money. You know, film and developing and all of that. So you would raise your camera and you would think like, you pause, and the digital revolution changed that dramatically. So when I was first starting out and I was trying to build a wedding portfolio, reaching out to the established people in that area, say, hey, you want to train a possible competitor? Didn't go over very well for me. We'll just kind of leave it at that. So I had no choice. I just had to go with what I had. So fast forward a few months later, I'm sitting at a Starbucks in Woodstock Town Square, which it's a little city in northern Illinois. If you've seen the movie Groundhog Day, that's where the movie was actually filmed. They actually have like a town square, like it's like actual like square, like there's a park in the middle and the town goes around it like that. I sat across from a couple and I said, hey, you want to take a chance? Obviously I didn't charge them very much. I was very clear at where I was at in the photography experience. But yeah, that year, 5 couples took a chance on me. I sat across from those 5 couples. I told them the truth. I told them where I was at in my photography experience. I slid over 4x6 prints to them and said, hey, let's do this, right? And they took a chance on me, and I risked rejection and I risked failure and I put it out there. And you know what? I'm going to be forever indebted to those 5 couples. Those 5 couples allowed me to build my portfolio and build my business into something far greater and far more amazing than I ever thought it could be. So for the photographer out there that's just starting out and you're wondering, well, I don't have, a full frame camera, I don't have this gear, I don't have a photography studio or fancy lighting or anything like that. So what? Start with what you have. Somebody is always going to have more than you. Somebody else is always going to have more resources or a better opportunity or access to somebody who can teach and train them in a better way. But you know what? It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, all you have is what you have. Take what you have. Do the absolute best you can with it. Work through those difficulties, and I promise you, some really cool stuff is waiting on the other side. So on where to start, it's really simple. Start today. Start with what you have. I'll see you soon.